we're using the Freak Angels model, which was the book Warren Ellis did with Paul Duffy before that. Counterintuitively, we've discovered that by allowing our readers to check this stuff online, they either prefer to wait for the trade, or they read it online and then get the trade anyway. We all know that people would prefer to hold an artifact in their hand. I moderate the forum where people discuss this stuff, so I can tell you, albeit apocryphally, that a lot of the people who are reading the webcomic in its online form are not only waiting for it in trade format, but are jumping into the other trade books that we read, that we create for Cross, the Badlands stuff. So it seems to cover a lot of bases as a kind of lost leader. So Wish You Were Here, as William has just said, just got the 3rd volume out. The 4th volume will hit us in July. It's a strange thing to talk about because it's at one and the same time, as I'm sure most of you are familiar with the notion of the Cross universe. It's got a reputation for being the most brutal, most extreme. It's not for everybody, and we are unashamed about saying so, but we're also quite certain and able to defend, I like to think, its value as horror in valuable terms. It's horror because there are things in the world which are worth being horrified by. And Wish You Were Here in particular is a book that, despite all its excesses and its depravities, is quite personal. It's a story of one man stuck on an island with a gradually diminishing group of fellows in a world which is unbelievably horrific as their doomed attempt to sustain a society is gradually decaying around them. And yeah, there's a lot of thematic stuff. I mean, I'm remarkably proud of it, and the best that I can say about it is that gradually, over the months, it has stopped being regarded as, oh, that sick shit that people who have got no taste in comics read, and it has become something really, really good. And I'm desperately proud of it. I think it's probably the best thing I've ever written. So I would encourage you to check it out online, like your readers, and I'm fairly sure that you will agree that it's something worth stocking in trade form. On to Disenchanted.
The website is amazing, and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check out the website, but when we built it, we really wanted to add a whole lot to the experience in the site itself.
Yeah, I mean, so before I get on to what Disenchanted is, it's all about building a world. It is something so unlike anything else that we knew from the outset that making the story was only one element of it, and that's the bit that obviously concerns you. So the wider stuff, the online stuff, is remarkable. We've built a map which is extraordinary and detailed, and you can zoom in and out, and this is all stuff which the readers who only pick up the trade paperback will be able to go and explore as an ancillary gratification.
The map is actually mapped with Google mapping technology, and it's to scale for 1 million inhabitants. But it's multiple layers of of the world, and all the locations that are in the comic are of course represented in the map. And it's this really impressive thing that we spend far too much time and money on, but it's really fucking cool. So yeah, check it out. But it's what we want is for readers to just get engaged, on the deepest level possible, and to really feel like this is something they haven't seen before. So we wanted to make sure we really stepped up our game.
So the twist behind Disenchanted, and to use that map as the entry point, is that it is the story of a family in a city which is inhabited by 1-inch tall people. And these are all the folkloric creatures of European myth, Cornish pixies and goblins and brownies and kobolds and fairies and all these things which we regard as being slightly twee. And I wanted to tell a story which was urban fantasy at its purest, and I wanted to remove all twee sentimentality from something which on first appearance is all about sentimentality. And so at its top level, it is quite simply a story about a city of immigrants in a city in which they, a family of immigrants living in a city in which they are the minority, and how each member of that family responds to the corrupting and tempting influences of the city around them. And so you've got one family member who spins off into radicalism, one family member who joins a gang, one family member who becomes a policewoman. You've got the elderly matriarch who is trying to personify tradition while she's gradually being corrupted, and you've got the central figure who's trying to hold it all together while discovering a talent for violence, and all these different things. And so it's an ensemble piece. The thematic subtext underneath all this has to do with the idea that cities tend to decay superstition. You can't live in a city for any length of time without finding your sentimentality, religion, superstition, folklore, whatever it is, challenged and gradually chipped away at. And so I was kind of fascinated by the idea of how would it be if not only are your superstitions being challenged, but you are the superstition yourself. And so it is quite literally a story about a family of fairies with all the tweeness removed in a context that is probably more familiar to people who've watched The Wire.
The Wire in a city of fairies.
So it's really cool, and in the same model as we've just been talking about, online for free, people are loving it online, desperately waiting for the trade paperback. So yeah, we hope you'll support that too.
So those are our two webcomics that we have going. Of course, Sai's also doing regular arcs in the Cross Badlands series. Then let's talk a little bit about Uber. Now Uber came out, what issue 0 is, a little over a year now. Humongous hit for us right out of the gate. I don't think either Kieron or I was quite prepared for how big it got as fast as it got. We put out a hardcover collection, which has tons of back material before Christmas, which has done well. But I know there's a ton of pent up demand for the actual trade. Which we waited because I didn't want to put it out too close to the hardcover because I didn't want to step on any inventory you guys had for the hardcover. So we're putting volume 1 out now. It'll be out first week of April, and then volume 2 will be out in September. So it's a shorter window between those volumes as volume 2 sort of catches up to where we should be with the release schedule. But let's have Kieron talk a little bit about Uber. So how many of you are familiar with Uber? Yeah, excellent, good. So the basics they kind of know.
Good. Basically with Uber, as most of you know, it's a ridiculously over-researched, over-serious, fairly brutal story about World War II, basically with the superhumans as nuclear bomb metaphors. It's fundamentally a story about the R&D war between the Allies and the Axis powers, giving a third act to World War II. That's the basic concept. And that it's one of my. Me and William, we started talking about this in 2008, which is right at the beginning of my career. The issue 0 of Uber was the second superhero comic I'd ever written in my life, which makes it so it's sort of interesting in terms of it's something I had a long-term plan for. It's got this 60-issue sort of structure, the whole thing, which we know. Me and William out on Tuesday, we're planning artists for issue 39, that kind of thing. So, it's that element of the long haul to it,
Yeah.
And we kind of structure it into years, and that's kind of where we're heading at the moment. Issue 11, as we started issue 0, is kind of the end of the first 12 issues. That would be the end of the second trade. It's kind of the end of series HBO climax. So it's basically 2 trades per year is really the sort of structure we're going for. And that is where...
So 10 is in your stores now. Okay, we've just gotten, or maybe it's this week?
No, 10 came in this week.
Okay, yeah, so it's this week.
Yeah, and 11 is fundamentally one of those big kind of...
11 is where we throw it all on its head.
Yeah, it's probably getting... As an uncomfortable book that Uber is, it was probably getting too comfortable, therefore we kind of take an enormous step that restates what games we are playing with history and the points we're kind of making with it. Kind of bearing that in mind, obviously this is where the trade comes out in April, so these are quite close together, and we kind of wanted to sort of create a way to put the cash up and actually jump on if they wanted. That's kind of the aim of what we're putting out for Free Comic Book Day, which is basically a kind of in-world document that uses art and everything else to basically do imagine somebody's note towards creating a history document of the first 12 issues of Uber. So this is kind of something that both people following the books will like, and it's also something you literally just give to somebody if they want to pick up Uber in a huge well. That's the kind of the device.
Yeah, our free comic book for Uber is pretty great. I'm really proud of it. And Kieron, spent a lot of time writing it, but it's all, it's like a 32-page document of, behind the scenes, sort of like almost a history book about the world of Uber.
Yeah, it's like almost like there's like essay structures in there, and there's like oral histories. Like it's a very different way of sort of doing this. As I think it's sort of something we'll eventually put in a trade anyway, because it's not just like throwaway content. Is the best way of putting it.
And it's not just reprint junk.
Yes, I just
the free comic book that's really cool. Yeah.
It's kind of like it's almost a promise. It's a free comic day, which I think readers of the series will actually desperately try to steal, as opposed to new people as well.
Right.
Which is one problem with that, and that's all kind of seeing up to year 2, which is where what's the word? Putting it. I just don't want to talk. I mean, it's one of these things where this is kind of all the new stuff, as opposed to, like I said, this is kind of like the first year is me building over the structure of what I started like 5 years ago, and this is kind of like, and year 2 is kind of like modern me attacking World War II and trying to find new angles and finding different parts to talk about, and trying to kind of something that talks about everything. Like the thing with Uber, it's got such a world scale. It's got I never actually read Game of Thrones when I actually played Uber, but Uber's a book about large-scale political groups acting upon the world. So you move from the high level where you have, Hitler and Churchill and all these kind of people talking about stuff, then you go to the ground level and get the real human part of how war crushes people's lives. Obviously, war's an awful thing, which is a very fucking banal thing to say. But the Uber is, it really thinks it's the big anguish choir of it all. So, it's kind of like, as proud as we are of what we've done at Uber, I think the second year is even better. Yeah. That's kind of one of the reasons why we want to make it as accessible as it can because it's such a big thing, which is why the backlist is so important, and why things like the free comic book day are so important, and it all builds towards the large 60-issue big statement thing.
Yeah, so when it's all said and done, we'll have at least 10 just really killer trades. Kieron's writing the whole thing, so there's no problems of lack of a cohesive vision. He's got rough notes on everything, and then we're planning all out way ahead of time in incredible detail. I mean, Uber's one of the, I'm so proud of that book, and it's been going for so many years, on our end before you guys ever even saw it. It's been amazing watching Kieron develop as a writer, just because issue 0 he did write many years before what he's writing now, 17, 18, 19. And it's just the complexity and the density and the human drama, especially as he starts being able to break out of just some of the mold of history. And as with 11 and things changing so radically, it gives him so much freedom that it's going in amazing places. And I really hope you guys are all coming along for the ride. But it's something really special, and it's something that I'm incredibly proud to put out, and I think is going to be one of those perennials that is going to sell day in and day out for a really long time.
And it's really hard work.
Yeah, it's an easy series to write. I don't think either of these guys are anything that's a breeze, because it's all because it's the complexity, it's the density, it's what we do best is challenging work, and there's nothing easy about writing challenging work. I guess probably by its very definition. So. Yeah, I don't think we have a ton of time left. Yeah, okay. So, did anybody have any specific questions, either about Disenchanted or Wish You Were Here or Uber or anything you want to ask me? Or, of course, you can also catch me at the booth at the show or not.
I have a question.
Oh, God, no. Now I'm in trouble. Yes?
Can we encourage Rich Johnson not to shine that light in my eye?
We could, but Rich doesn't actually listen to anything we say. So we'll be, I'll be back here in another half hour with Max Brooks, and we'll talk a little more about Extinction Parade. And I think, that's kind of what we got. So, good. Thank you all for your attention.